To understand the new American map of the Eastern Mediterranean, stop looking at borders. Look at the switches. A switch for gas, a switch for deep water ports, a switch for military runways, and a switch for the data cables running along the seafloor. For decades, the United States relied on one main switchboard in this region, Turkey. But look at the last 3 years. Ukraine is on fire, the Red Sea is blocked, and Turkey has become the ultimate wild card, buying Russian missiles, bargaining on NATO votes, and turning every alliance into a transaction. So, Washington is quietly building a new operating system, and the hardware for that system is Greece. This isn't just about politics. It is a massive capital shift. The United States is currently executing a multi-layered strategy to transform Greece into its primary logistical and energy gateway for Southeast Europe. They are hedging against chaos in the Black Sea and unpredictability in Ankara by betting on stability in Athens. From the floating terminals in Alexandroupoli to the hangars of Suda Bay and the digital corridors under Crete, the pieces of this architecture are already being laid down. In this report, we are going to ignore the diplomatic speeches and follow the money. We will analyze exactly how this American trillion-dollar hedge is being built, why Greece was chosen over Turkey, and what this new economic geography means for the Greek economy over the next decade. For 70 years, NATO's southern map relied on a single giant assumption: Turkey is the hinge. Cold War planners operated on a binary logic. Turkey controlled the Bosphorus, so Washington tolerated almost any volatility from Ankara. They believed they had no alternative. The sheer size of the Turkish army and its location made it too big to fail. But in 2019, the model didn't just crack, it shattered. When Turkey activated the Russian S-400 radars, it didn't just lose the F-35 program. It forced the Pentagon to ask a terrifying question: what happens if the hinge breaks? This wasn't a moral debate about human rights or alliances. It was a cold, hard risk assessment. A strategic platform is supposed to be a constant variable. It is not supposed to wake up every 6 months and renegotiate its loyalty based on the mood in the presidential palace. Then, the Black Sea caught fire. The invasion of Ukraine didn't just change borders, it broke the logistics chain. Suddenly, relying solely on the Bosphorus wasn't just difficult, it was dangerous. The alliance needed a vertical corridor that bypassed Turkish bottlenecks entirely. That is the precise moment Greece ceased to be just a frontline state and became a platform. Washington began treating Greek geography as a unified asset class. Look at the 2025 U.S. defense reporting requirements. Congress is no longer just asking about specific base upgrades. They are asking about network capacity, tracking investments in Suda, Alexandroupoli, Larissa, and Stefano-Vikeo as one integrated circuit. Notice the pattern. The U.S. isn't building giant new Little Americas behind barbed wire. They are embedding into existing Greek infrastructure. They are upgrading Greek ports, extending Greek runways, and integrating with Greek command centers. The logic is brutal but simple. Redundancy. If Suda is the shield for the Mediterranean, Alexandroupoli is the breathing tube for the Balkans. If one switch is turned off by politics in Ankara, the other stays open in Athens. This shift has been institutionalized. Just look at the 3+1 format: Greece, Cyprus, Israel, and the US. As recently as November 2025, this group reaffirmed cooperation not just on security, but on energy grids. This is no longer a photo op. It is a permanent diplomatic architecture designed to function whether Turkey joins the room or not. By building this redundancy, the United States has effectively shorted the risk of Turkish unpredictability. They have bought an insurance policy called Greece. But here's the key pivot that most analysts miss. When a superpower turns a country into a platform, they don't just bring soldiers. They bring predictability. And in the global economy, predictability is the most valuable currency there is. A platform creates a gravity field. It pulls in energy contracts. It attracts digital infrastructure. It lowers the risk premium for investors who know their assets are sitting under a NATO security umbrella. So, if Chapter 1 explains the architecture, Chapter 2 explains the payoff. The tanks and planes are just the hardware. Now, let's look at the software and the money. Energy is the first field where this American plan stops being theory and starts becoming a receipt. The core concept is simple. Greece is transforming into a vertical corridor. For decades, energy in Europe moved east to west. Now, American planning is forcing it to move south to north. American LNG arrives by ship at Greek terminals. It is regasified, and then it is pushed north, feeding Bulgaria, Romania, Moldova, and crucially, the Ukrainian energy grid. This is why the infrastructure matters. Look at the numbers. The Revithausa terminal near Athens has a sustained send-out capacity of roughly 5 to 6 billion cubic meters per year. Add the new floating storage regasification unit, FSRU, at Alexandroupoli, which brings another 5.5 billion cubic meters of capacity online. Put those together, and Greece isn't just importing gas for Greek kitchens. It has built a capacity of over 10 billion cubic meters, enough to cover domestic needs and still act as a rescue valve for the Balkans. And who is filling that valve? In 2024, over 70% of the LNG unloaded at Revithausa came from the United States. This is not a market fluctuation, it is a structural shift. American companies have found their permanent front door into Southeast Europe, and that door is Greek. But then there is the second layer, the potential for Greek production. We must be disciplined here. Exploration is not extraction. A seismic survey is not a bank deposit, and trillions is a headline, not a budget line. However, the movement is undeniable. In November 2025, ExxonMobil, the largest energy company in the West, entered Block 2 in the Ionian Sea west of Corfu. Meanwhile, exploration continues in the ultra-deep waters south of Crete. These are long-cycle bets. If a commercial reservoir is confirmed, we aren't talking about revenue until the early 2030s. But if that happens, Greece's role changes instantly. It stops being just a transit corridor and becomes a producer. That shifts the revenue model from transit fees to royalties, taxes, and upstream industrial growth. Yet, even without a drop of Greek oil, the platform is already paying out. Alexandroupoli has become a boomtown not because of magic, but because of logistics. When you move NATO equipment and global gas through a port, you generate boring, reliable value, repair contracts, trucking, security, and storage fees. This is how geopolitics becomes local payroll. And notice the flywheel effect. Strategic relevance brings stability. Stability lowers the perceived risk of the country, and low risk attracts the highest tier of tourism. This isn't soft power, it is hard currency. According to Bank of Greece data, travel receipts from the US surged to over 1.5 billion euros recently, with American tourist arrivals breaking records year after year. These are high-spending visitors who come because the country feels safe, Western-aligned, and predictable. So the payoff for the Greek budget isn't just about a pipeline tariff. It is about resilience. When you are the hub for American gas and the playground for American dollars, you insulate your economy against shocks. You become harder to ignore, harder to threaten, and much harder to bankrupt. To truly understand the American commitment, you don't listen to speeches. You look at the concrete, you count the runways, the piers, and the fuel lines. The framework for this was laid in the updated Mutual Defense Cooperation Agreement, MDCA. But legal papers are just paper. What matters is where the money lands. Start with Suda Bay in Crete. It has always been a hub, but look at the activity in May 2025. The U.S. Navy didn't just dock ships, they awarded a $44 million contract to build a new Joint Mobility Processing Center. This is a terminal designed to handle wide-body cargo aircraft and thousands of troops simultaneously. When you build infrastructure with a completion target of late 2027 and service contracts running into the 2030s, you are not renting a base. You are embedding yourself into the bedrock. Then, move north to Alexandroupoli. This port is no longer a secondary option. It is the prototype of the new NATO logistics map. Throughout May and June 2025, during the Defender 25 exercises, this port was the primary lung for moving heavy armor toward Bulgaria and Romania, completely bypassing the Turkish Straits. Once a port becomes essential for deterrence logistics, it becomes politically untouchable. In the air, the shift is even more permanent. The focus is Andravida. This is no longer just an airbase, it is becoming a digital node. In July 2024, Greece officially signed the letter of offer and acceptance for 20 F-35s. Deliveries start in 2028. Why does this matter? Because the F-35 is not just a jet, it is a flying data center. Integrating it requires massive upgrades to base security, fiber optics, and maintenance hangars. And once you install that classified infrastructure, you cannot easily unplug it. It locks the Greek Air Force into the same operating system as the U.S. Air Force for the next 40 years. This brings us to the industrial layer. Look at the Elefsina shipyards. The U.S. Development Finance Corporation, DFC, didn't just offer a $125 million loan to modernize the facility out of charity. This is strategic industrial policy. Washington realizes that if its ships are operating in the Eastern Med, they need a mechanic nearby that they trust. Modern shipyards mean repairs happen in Greece, value stays in Greece, and technical know-how expands in Greece. Connect these dots. Suda, Novel Depth, Alexandroupoli, Logistics Bypass, Andravida, Air Dominance, Elefsina, Industrial Repair. Greece isn't just buying weapons, it is hosting the ecosystem that sustains Western power in the Mediterranean. And here's the money trail reality. Budgets change, presidents change, but infrastructure is sticky. Once you pour the concrete, the alliance becomes physical. But there is one final layer. Bases and pipelines are visible, but there is an invisible asset that is even more valuable in the long run. It is the one thing you cannot buy. You have to earn it. Before we move on, one quick note. Almost 88% of viewers watching this video are not subscribed. If this analysis helps you understand how power is being reshaped in the Eastern Mediterranean, subscribing ensures you don't miss what comes next. Wars show you where a country can fight. Cables and gigawatts show you where a country can earn. In Washington's long game, Greece is no longer just a frontline state. It is becoming a European safe harbor, a node where American standards, capital, and technology can lock in for decades. The first layer is digital. Under the sea, the Eastern Mediterranean is crowding with new fiber optic cables. The map tells the story. Global data routes are desperate to bypass volatile zones. They need EU territory and they need stability. Projects like the Medusa cable system are not just wires. They are the digital equivalent of shipping lanes, cementing Greece and Cyprus as the primary data gateway for the entire region. On land, the signal is even louder. In 2020, Microsoft announced its GR for Growth initiative, planning a massive data center region in Athens. Whatever your politics, you must understand what this means. Trillion-dollar capital hates regulatory risk. When a giant like Microsoft plants a flag, it is the ultimate vote of confidence. It tells the market, We trust this jurisdiction. Then comes the energy transition. This is where European financing meets American strategy. Greece's Recovery and Resilience Plan channels over 30 billion euros in grants and loans. This money is targeted at specific upgrades, grids, digitalization, and cleaner power. And the scale is already impressive. By the end of 2024, Greece had installed roughly 9.6 gigawatts of solar photovoltaics and 5.35 gigawatts of wind power. That is 15 gigawatts of capacity before you even count hydroelectric dams. The bottleneck is no longer the sun or the wind, it is the grid. And that is exactly where the next wave of smart money is going, into storage, interconnectors, and high-voltage transmission. Finally, there is the financial gravity. After the crisis years, foreign direct investment, FDI, has returned in waves, hitting 8 billion euros in 2022 and remaining strong through 2023 and 2024. And do not underestimate the soft capital of tourism. When you combine a NATO security umbrella with direct flights from New York and Chicago, you get demand that is bulletproof. This is capital without a factory. It is cash that flows directly into island economies, ferries, and family businesses. It creates a baseline of wealth that is incredibly hard to sanction or blockade. So step back and look at the full design. Security creates predictability. Predictability attracts energy and logistics. Logistics pulls in digital infrastructure, and infrastructure anchors global capital. This combination creates trillion-scale value over time, not as a single check, but as a river of flows that runs through Greek territory for the next 50 years. Ultimately, America's trillion-dollar bet is a choice between two operating models in the same fragile neighborhood. On one side, you have Turkey, a major power with undeniable strategic weight, but also a partner that views unpredictability as leverage, bargaining hard, shifting alliances, and often surprising its own allies. On the other side, you have Greece, politically stable, anchored deeply inside NATO and the EU, and willing to structure cooperation through long-term treaties that do not explode with every election cycle. Washington is not abandoning Turkey. Geopolitics rarely deals in absolutes, but it is aggressively building a second pillar. It is ensuring that the Eastern Mediterranean cannot be held hostage by the mood swings of a single actor. For Greece, the opportunity is historic, but it is not automatic. Being a platform is dangerous. You can easily become a transit zone where gas flows, troops rotate, and value escapes elsewhere. The difference lies in national strategy. It requires infrastructure that feeds local industry, not just foreign logistics. It requires contracts that transfer technology, not just imported hardware. And it requires policies that convert stability into permanent diplomatic leverage. So the real question is not whether America is betting on Greece. The maps and the money prove that they are. The question is whether Greece will convert that bet into lasting national power and measurable prosperity for its people. If this analysis resonated with you, the videos on your screen continue the story. Like and subscribe to stay informed as the balance of power in the Eastern Mediterranean keeps evolving, and consider becoming a member if you would like to further help our channel grow.